Welcome, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Shaw. This is the Data Entrepreneurs. This is just a community for entrepreneurs that are into like data science, machine learning, AI, these types of new and emerging technologies. And I'm super excited because Michael is here. I first came across Michael's kind of journey with a viral post on Medium where he was talking about him leaving his $450,000 Netflix role. Welcome, Michael. Maybe you can give the audience a quick intro about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here on the Data Entrepreneurs. So I'm Michael. I'm the founder of All In Consulting, and we are an Odoo ERP implementation consultancy. Before this, I worked at Netflix for 4 years in product engineering roles. I worked at Amazon for 3 years up in Seattle for almost 3 years as well. I went to UC Berkeley, was born in San Francisco, and I'm so excited to be here, Sean. Thanks for having
You
me.
were born to be a tech entrepreneur. Born in SF, went to Berkeley, and then hitting all the tech hubs.
That's true. That's true. That's a good observation.
So I guess I'll just start with like the question that's probably top of mind for a lot of people, which is like, why would you leave this like $450,000 Netflix salary? Like for many people, I feel like that's like their dream life,
Yeah.
making this huge salary at like a really highly respected company like Netflix. But so like, what was the motivation there? What was going through your head?
I was there for almost 4 years, really. So it's a decent amount of time. And I felt like towards the end, in one sentence, I felt like I fulfilled my role, but not my potential. Like,
Mm,
honestly, like it was not going to further any of my future goals being there. And it was clear that it became very, very clear towards the end. About 2 years in, I was trying to become a product manager there. And I basically tried for 2 years, basically going in a circle and doing everything I could to try to get this role. And I thought that if I just tried harder, I thought that I would eventually get the job.
yeah.
But it turns out that I think that looking back, that there can be systemic issues that make these types of moves very difficult. And
Mm.
at Netflix, I think that they would really just rather prefer to hire someone outside than to promote internally. And these types of horizontal transitions, particularly, are very uncommon.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it was I was about 28 at the time, and then I was just thinking like it just felt like I was kind of wasting time at that point. And so
Yeah.
it came to a point where I thought that it would be more strategic to try to ask for an exit out and a severance out than to stay any longer. And so I did that in May 2021.
Mm.
I guess just to give you guys an overview of what happened, I left Netflix in May 2021. I spent the rest of 2021 just traveling a little bit, just taking a break for the really first time and after 7 years of working. And then it was at the beginning of 2022 that I really had a decision to make. Do I want to apply for more jobs, or do I want to like take a bet on myself? And so I decided to take a bet on myself in 2022. And during that year, like I was really it was a year of experimentation, is what I call it. When I tried all kinds of things like content creation, speaking engagements, newsletters, courses, coaching, consulting, and freelancing. And then it was at the end of that year that I decided, I'd say I did that for a year. And it was at the beginning of 2023, I decided to go all in on consulting. And that was definitely the right decision looking
Mm.
back. Like, I don't think that I could have made as much progress as I did if I did not choose consulting. And so I did, so in all of 2023, I was just trying to get as much experience as I could with consulting, just trying to get like just understand what the sales process is kind of like,
Mhm.
seeing a project from start to finish, trying to lead a team to complete a consulting project. And I was actually able to do that. I finally like completed several multi-month engagements, successful engagements in 2023, and here I am in 2024. I've realized the need. Like now, I have the general consulting skills. I think it's important to niche down at this point, so I've decided to focus particularly in implementations of the Odoo ERP ecosystem, which is kind of ERP is like software, like the backbone software that runs businesses. So it's
Mm.
kind of like if a restaurant they have something that manages their inventory, their point of sale, their like orders, payroll, like all that is basically ERP. And so I'm focusing on a particular ERP implementation called Odoo now.
Oh, okay, interesting. So I want to go back to 2023, which sounds like okay, so 2022, just like a lot of experimentation, a lot of failing. Your article goes viral, people are reaching out to you, there's a lot of excitement. So like what did that transition look like from like this explore phase to like, okay, like I need to like was it like I need to start making money because like the bank account's just like going down, or was it or was there like a different thought process that really made you want to go into consulting?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I just looked at everything that I did in 2022 and what
Mhm.
looked like what could I make the most money from. And
Okay.
for example, I tried content creation. Like generally, I feel you don't make that much money directly from the content itself,
Right.
right? Like you don't like it's hard to survive just on like AdSense, basically, right?
Mhm.
On
Yeah.
YouTube or just the medium revenues. I tried courses too, and I think from publishing two courses, I think in the lifetime, I think I only made maybe like $8,000
Mm.
from the courses. um, tried basically consulting and coaching, and it was definitely by far consulting had the most.
Yeah.
I made the most from. So I just decided that if the only way to sustain myself is if I focus fully on consulting. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that your entrepreneurship journey is just progressively narrowing down over time. If you're
Yeah.
getting more and more narrow over time, you're going in the right direction, is my opinion.
I like that you like framed it that way because that really resonates with my last 6 months. Because I kind of started with this huge wide net, and really through the mistakes, that's when I say, okay, I don't need that anymore. Like that's a headache, like that's too much work, or like that's a distraction, and then really getting hyper focused. I'm not a laser beam yet. Maybe I'm like more of a flashlight right now, but I can see like the goals to get to that laser beam. Okay, so when you do commit to consulting, I guess I got like two big questions like how are you getting clients? And then you were like trying to get these teams together. Like how were you putting the teams together? Like who were your initial hires?
So I think I really start off with clients from I think freelancing marketplaces. I think is a decent place way to start, just to
Mm,
understand like just managing client relations is very different than working in corporate where
yeah.
you're just working on a team. You're not really customer facing. So
Hmm.
I think that Fiverr, Upwork, Catalent, y'all can take a look at those platforms. I think it is worth doing trying those platforms, and it's important to be persistent too. Like
Mm,
can't just send a few proposals and then expect a job. Like it does take some time to do.
yeah.
And then I just got so I got lucky there. I won some big projects there. And then
Yeah.
also from content creation, also I got a few referrals as well, just sharing my build in public journey of growing this consultancy. Um, so that's how I got clients. I think I've made a realization maybe towards that last month, maybe end of 2023, that
Okay.
it's nice to get these inbound, like those inbound leads, but it's like as an entrepreneur, you got to go to the customer too, because
Mm,
otherwise, like the inbound leads are kind of unpredictable. Like you
right.
can't like turn it up or down. So I feel like some form of outbound prospecting is necessary for successful consulting. And then your second question was on the teams.
Hmm.
So I built a lot of teams from freelancers and contractors using Upwork, Upwork, Fiverr. Basically, I was on both sides of the marketplaces.
Yeah.
Actually, I was. And what the way I recommend you structure your teams is that try to not do the implementation yourself. That's just not very scalable. You really got to act more like an engagement manager, or that's what they have in like consulting projects at like McKinsey, like an
Hmm.
engagement manager, or maybe have and then or a project manager. And then what you do is you hire the freelancers under you to they report to you, and then they do the work, and you just make sure that that's on track. I think that that's the
Yeah.
sustainable way to do it. But you should not be involved if you're writing code. Generally, I would say that it's unscalable. So.
Yeah. I feel like that really resonates with like what I'm doing right now because in the past, like the consulting work or freelancing work I did was really hands on keyboard. Like I was doing the data science work. But now I'm seeing like glimmers of being more like the project manager, and kind of leveraging the kind of connections through this community and people reaching out to me, like build in public, uh, that reach out through the build in public content. Um, Okay, so I want to revisit the clients. So like what is your sales funnel look like now? So the outbound is pretty unpredictable. Like you can't there's no knob to turn up or up and down like inbound leads. So you were mentioning like a mix of inbound and outbound. Like what is your kind of high level marketing strategy look like at this point?
So right now I try to mine out the marketplaces, and then I'm also testing a lot of cold outreach right now. And then when I get a few Odoo projects under the belt, I also would like to start the content creation there as well. So I
Mm,
think that content creation is useful, but you have to like just be strategic about it. Make sure you're
right,
making the content for the clients. It can't just be for anybody, because then you end up not attracting your future customers.
right. Okay. Um Okay. Another thing we were talking about, like before we hopped on, was kind of the sales funnel beyond the lead, like actually taking a lead and turning it into a contract. So what does that look like for you these days?
Yeah, this we were talking about it before. It was very frustrating to figure this whole process out, and it was basically a year of trial and error. But I've literally tried everything at this point, like charging them for the first call, skipping a discovery, going straight to implementation, charging for discovery and implementation,
Mm,
free call first. Like I've tested pretty much everything, and I'm certain now that the strategy should be like, so if they're inbound, for example, like they're in your DMs, the goal then is to get them onto a book a meeting. So I have a free like 30-minute call there. And then from there, the goal is to get them to a paid discovery. So the paid discovery is when you figure out the plan and like analyze their systems and just investigate different options and then come up with a report for them on what your action you're going to take. And then implementation is when you actually build it out.
mhm.
So DMs, free meeting, then everything after that has to be paid. So that's what's worked for me, and I think that you do have to offer something for free for the client, right? But you can't offer too
Right.
much. So I think that
Yeah.
a free 30-minute call, I think, is the right balance there. But free discovery, like that's actual work at that point. So
Mhm.
I cannot recommend a free discovery. So
And then I guess to get more tactical, like do you use specific platforms or technologies like for this whole like sales funnel? Do you like have a CRM or anything like that?
I do have a CRM now. I actually use Odoo CRM actually.
Oh,
So
do okay.
I try to use the CRM that I'm trying to implement for other people as well. Odoo's
Oh,
free.
okay, that's it.
If you only use one
Okay.
app, if you only use the CRM, it's free. So,
Oh, cool.
but you have to, even if you use Excel sheets, like you should be tracking this in some way. So,
Another thing that I've asked a lot of freelancers, because I did like a series of interviews with like Upwork data scientists, and one point that seems to be split is on niching. So I'm kind of curious of like what your perspective is on niching. Like, is it necessary? Like, when does it make sense? When does it not make sense? And
yeah,
like how you like think about that for your consulting business.
no, great question. And niching is absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical. And I
Mm,
think that uh, the first comment I want to make on niching is that every engineer's first idea for starting consultancy is custom software development. That is literally
okay.
every engineer's first idea, and it's I think a very unsophisticated one at this point. Because first of all, it's like software development is a solution, but what's the problem that
Right.
you're actually trying to solve? So it's a solution, not a problem. And the second thing is also it's just highly commoditized, and so
Right.
like think of how many engineers are out there in the world, how many custom software shops are there in the world.
Mhm.
So there's actually a test that I use. It's called the competitor test, which is that
Mm,
if you know that you've niched down enough in expertise business like consulting, when you have between 10 to 200 competitors, the reason why it's 10 is that if you have less than 10 competitors, then you start to wonder if there's even a market. Like
yeah.
it's unlikely you're the first person there, right? So that's one. And then over 200, it starts to be a little too commoditized, and you probably have to still niche it down a little more to get it in that right range. So that's one thing on niching down is I implore you to, like, for example, for you, Shaw, like if you're doing a data engineering consultancy, can you find, like, how many data engineering consultancies can you find? I would encourage you to run through that exercise.
Right. Yeah. I like
For
that.
example, like we were actually talking about this before as well. Like another way you can niche down is they call horizontal positioning when you focus on basically a specific ecosystem or technology, but it can apply to many different industries.
Yeah.
So, for example, like we were talking about, like data engineering is kind of broad, but then I wonder, like, Snowflake specific consultancies,
Mhm.
Tableau specific, like I only implement Tableau, like
Yeah.
that for sure. I'm certain there are consultancies that do that. That'll definitely be more than 10. Maybe it might even be between the 10 to 200 range, right? So
Right.
that's why I recommend, if I had to redo this over, I would look at these types of channel partnerships, which is
Mhm.
focusing on a specific platform and only implementing those technologies first. Um, and the second thing on positioning too, on niching down, is that there's also there's horizontal, like I said, with the ecosystem. There's also vertical positioning when you only focus on an industry, like
Mm.
automotive, retail,
Yeah.
manufacturing, right? And so that's another way. And I find that the best type of positioning is that, like, you combine the two. So you
Right.
implement a specific platform, but for a specific vertical. So
Yeah.
like AWS for healthcare. I've seen there's another platform called ServiceNow.
Mm.
ServiceNow for the government.
Yeah.
Odoo for retail. Like that.
Mhm.
That seems to be what works. It,
Yeah.
a note on this is also like I was actually in a accelerator called a consulting accelerator. Shaw, I recommend you take a look at it too, by the way, called
Okay.
Vixel. Um, they invited an investment banker in to talk about mergers and acquisitions with consultancies, and so they showed all the logos of all the deals that they did. And I actually looked up all of them, and I noticed that they actually all had only one thing in common, which is they all seem to all have strong channel partnerships. So they were always like they implement Salesforce for this market, implement that
Right.
ERP for that market, Databricks for
Right.
that market. It was almost like a pattern. So an exercise for everybody here, especially if you're in data engineering, go to the data engineering platforms like all the ones you know, and then try to look for the partner page, and you'll see
Mhm.
some very big consultancies there, and really read their case studies, look at what they do. I think you'll learn a lot about how you need to be angling your consultancy from that exercise.
I really like how you're framing all of this. So, like, you're talking about basically like two main variables when it comes to niching. It's like you can get into a specific like vertical, a specific industry, and then a certain like horizontal, like a particular like technology or something like that. And then bringing those two together, and you're finding that sweet spot where you have like 10 to 200 competitors.
Yes.
Um, Okay. I also, because I also want to talk a bit more about marketing and branding because I read an article of yours which was build your brand, not your business. And I know you've kind of like your content creation journey is kind of dynamic, but like like, what do you recommend people that maybe they're like working the full-time job now, or they're not really sure if they want to get into entrepreneurship? Do you recommend content creation for them? Or like, when do you think it makes sense for entrepreneurs to start making content?
I think content creation basically ASAP. I would say.
Okay.
I think that it's a good exercise to do when you're employed in a job too,
Mm.
because content creation is really a mini lesson in entrepreneurship too, right? Instead of making customers, you're getting followers. So you figure out how to
Mhm.
grow an account. You understand like just the speed of execution. Like you make a video, you can't take forever. Like you write an
Mhm.
article, you can't take forever, right? You got to be as you just being faster with the content creation. Um, Also, each piece of content you create is basically like a product in itself
Yeah.
too. So you're basically making a lot of mini products over time, and then the content creation also helps you get views and build traffic for whatever you build later on.
Mhm.
I think it's a good exercise that everyone should probably take a look at. So
And then I guess kind of like the big picture question, like, where's this all going? So I know like you niche down, you're niching down with consulting and you're really trying to exploit that, really expand that. Is your goal to just like keep scaling this consulting firm, or do you have something else planned on the horizon?
I think the goal is really just to like last year was first year was experimentation with entrepreneurship at all. Last year was general consulting. This year is focus, and I'm really trying to just develop expertise on a particular platform.
Yeah.
Basically, doing what I just told you with focusing on Odoo particularly as a technology to build expertise in.
Yeah.
Really scale the business and go from there. I have some other maybe side ventures that I'm looking at too, like some maybe like brick and mortar and some small businesses as well. But my focus is generally on the consulting. So,
Okay. And then I guess broader term, like what about life after consulting? Do you have a vision of what that might look like?
like after consulting, well, first of all, I really gotta like grow this thing as large as I can first. So I'm really
Okay.
focused on that.
Mhm.
Afterwards, I would love to I would really like to just focus on maybe really go all in on content creation and brand building there,
Mhm.
and help other entrepreneurs out as much as I can because I know
Yeah.
how difficult this journey can be. So.
All right. Well, speaking of helping out other entrepreneurs, I think we kind of like blasted through all the questions, which has never happened before. But we can open it up for audience Q&A. I know we have more people than I expected in the audience, so I'm excited about that. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat or raise your hand. We got one from Fareed Khan, which is, what's the best way to find out how many competitors you have? Like search on Google and count how many websites show up?
Yeah, Google. You can go on like LinkedIn. What I like to do is now is I often go to like there are directories of agencies too. There's something called
Mhm.
Clutch.co. You can take a look at that. It's literally a service provider agency. Type it in, see what you find. Um, uh, here's an example. Like for example, like there was a brief 2 months in the middle of last year when I was doing some more of this like ChatGPT AI integrations. And I was considering like a focus on building an entire consultancy around that. Eventually, I abandoned that idea for a couple for this precise reason, which is that like I had trouble really finding like it's still relatively early, and I had
Right.
trouble finding like 10 to 200 other like truly AI only focused uh, consultancies.
Yeah.
And at the same time, also like I had also trouble finding like, is there precedence for like $100,000 AI implementation at a company? Like for I had trouble finding that for things like an ERP implementation, CRM implementation. It's guaranteed. Like this has happened like even 20 years ago. These things existed. So I just didn't want to do anything like I guess my TLDR is really, go make sure you have 10 to 200. I promise you, that will save you a lot of headache. I
And
promise you that.
and then a quick note, what is ERP when what do CRM stand for the people that don't know?
ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning, and that probably doesn't mean anything to you either. What it really is really it's like the software backbone of a business. So
Mm.
everything that they run, their accounting, your payroll, your like inventory management, how you take in orders, maybe for some like warehouses, their warehouse management, their if they have a lot of fleet of trucks, their fleet management, their repairs, like basically the software backbone behind a business, that's ERP. So
Mm.
like for so that's ERP. CRM is customer relationship manager. So this is like basically how you intake leads and then just keep track of all your leads and your customers basically. So think like Salesforce is really the biggest one, right?
Yeah. All right, so Tan's got his hand up. Come on up, Tan.
All right. Hey, Michael. I just wanted to ask, so if you were like in your position all over again, would you do the same path you had, exploring lots of options, or would you go straight into freelancing? Kind of what would be your desired path now that you have this new, I guess, like perspective on everything?
That's a great question. I've been at this journey, I'd say started in beginning of 2022. So it's been 2 years. And I think I could have probably cut these 2 years short. If I just start on consulting on day one, if I understood the sales funnel of like DMs to only a 30-minute free call, and then they have to pay for discovery, and then they pay for implementation, and then just understanding that you have to move them like the goal of each sales step is just going like to the next step. So the goal of the DM is only to get them on a call, and the goal of the call is to get them to the paid discovery, and the goal of the discovery is to get them to pay for implementation. So you're not trying to sell full implementation necessarily in the DM or in like the first meeting. You're just trying to get them to the next step.
Yeah.
I basically wasted like half a year experimenting with this, and I wish I got that back. So that'll save you 6 months. And then another one was understanding the 10 to 200 competitor test.
Mm.
I went like the AI months. I wish I got that was the 2 months I could have gotten back had I done that test sooner. And then also understanding channel partnerships, like building on a specific like on a specific ecosystem. I think that like I would have started with channel partnership on day one. Honestly, if I had to redo it, I would have started with that on day one.
Yeah.
I feel like channel partnerships, it literally solves like all the business problems that consultancies has. Because first of all, like when you just say general data engineering consulting, it's like it's still a little bit unclear exactly what you do. But
Right.
I build solutions on Snowflake, very clear what you do. So it basically solves all the positioning problems. You can instantly find 10 to 200 competitors because you go to the partner directory and you it's basically right there.
Mhm.
It helps you develop expertise because data engineering and engineering in general is actually very, very broad. Like there are a lot of
Yeah.
problems you can solve. So it hones your expertise in a particular area so you can truly build real expertise. I think that's channel partnership solves a lot of problems in my opinion. I think so. Just to summarize, start with consulting on day one. Start with channel partnerships on day one. Understand the sales funnel. Understand all the different like the 10 to 200 competitor test. Understand the vertical versus horizontal positioning.
Mhm.
If I knew all that, I would have probably cut off like a lot of time. So
And then I guess I have like a pretty specific tactical question, but when you talk about paid discovery, like how do you present that offer? Is it like something on your website? Is it like a fixed cost? Do you like price it based on the client, or like how does that look?
it's generally it's fixed cost, but the price
Okay.
has been different per client.
Okay.
Generally, the way I so there's a deliverable at the end, so it's an actual like report. For some people, it was also like there was like I actually have a hire designer, and then they have the designs, and we figure out the engineering architecture. Like that's real work. So they get a full report on this, and like the estimates for the project timeline and the cost after. The way I present it, the way I would recommend presenting it is that if someone just wants to rush into implementation, the way I explain it is that like engineering is like building a house. You know, if we want to build a house, you don't call the construction crews to start laying bricks tomorrow, right? Like there's a lot of like they have to draw the blueprints, they have to survey the land. Like there's a lot of pre-work that happens before we can even lay one brick down. So we really cannot build the house immediately. Like there has to be that planning phase to reduce risk. It really doesn't make sense. That's like trying to build a house and skipping the planning phase. It just doesn't make sense. So clients have bought it. Like people have clearly, I mean, many clients have bought the discovery at this point. So it's clearly so.
No, it's something that's really important. And, you know, I've talked to a lot of other freelancers, and like I've been talking to like Upwork millionaires, like that's a upcoming video I have coming out. And one thing that like one point that resonated with me is like one of the biggest mistakes freelancers make is that they just rush to implementation. They rush to building. And then one way I heard it put was like they end up solving the wrong problem because they're just focused on a solution and not necessarily a problem. And it's actually very hard, as I'm currently going through like as we like very recently. Okay, so we got a bunch of questions coming through in the chat. So Aiden is asking, you mentioned that cold directory was one of your focuses recently. Any suggestions for A, finding clients, and B, points to mention in cold emails?
So, okay, so I've only started recently testing this out, but I have realized a couple things. The first thing is that you got to be able to figure out the ICP for when you do these cold emails out. So by ICP, the ideal customer profile, like you have to know like for the consulting, what is the role of the person? Like what's the title that they have that you're trying to reach out to? What is the industry that they have? Like roughly how many employees, how much revenue that they have? What's their location? It's like when you go into like those lead generation tools like Apollo, you actually have to put in these filters like title, name, company, keywords, revenue, employee size, and all that. I'd recommend you try to figure out like what are all the values that you want to put in for your customer, and then go from there. And so something I also do is often if I'm targeting like specific real like physical like companies with physical locations, you can also go on Google Maps. And then what a lot of sales teams do is they literally have sales territories where it's like they have different you know, someone in charge of America, someone in charge of another country, and they're just mining out that whole location. So what I would recommend for you, Aiden, is to like first of all really try to list out the roles, and then you can potentially use tools like Apollo, Google Maps. You can Google in general. You can use to try to create a list. And then for each one, what I do is I basically have what I found was that I had some emails that actually worked, and I was actually able to get some responses. And the moment I find one where they actually do respond, then just start pasting that over and over and just honing that one specific messaging in. I try to add a little bit of personalization at the beginning and some compliments. And then I also always try to put like a PS at the end because people tend to read the PS part of cold emails as well. And remember that the goal of the email is also you're trying to just get them to the next step as well, which is the call. So remember, so that should really be your call to action. And also understand that it may take multiple reaches to reach somebody. Like don't just email once and then that's enough. Like you definitely have to follow up. And if it doesn't work, then I would try like add them on LinkedIn and then say, hey, I'm following up from the email. You can even try literally like calling the place too. Definitely don't do just once, because I literally last week I was talking to a client, and then they messaged me on LinkedIn. They're like, oh, where was your like proposal? And then it was like I sent them the proposal and a follow-up, and they missed both emails and they went with somebody else. And I was like, see, that was the clear lesson here. You got to follow up many times. Like you got to be persistent here with the cold email. So it's not just once. So,
yeah, that's really good. Okay, we got a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to blast through these. JG3924 said, what did you wish you knew sooner? Who are the people you follow in the space that you'd advise others to follow? Good value products, services you're using for your consultancy. So I guess 3 questions in there.
So I would recommend the 10 to 200 competitor test. Was actually from a book called The Business of Expertise by David Baker. That's a must read. That's definitely a must read book. Another one is from Impossible to Inevitable. It's a book on like SaaS sales, about niching down and outbound sales. I think that's a very important book to read. Um, Also, I was in an accelerator last year. It's called Vixel, VIXUL. You guys can all check it out. I would recommend it. It was when I look back on decision in 2023, that was one of the best decisions I made, was joining that accelerator.
Nice. All right. And then as far as, are there any like products or services that you use for your consultancy that are like critical to the business?
Nothing. I mean, just the usual workspace suites. Like, I don't think it's worth
Yeah, email.
exactly, stuff like that.
Okay, so I guess, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
There's, yeah, actually, yeah, just the usual
Okay,
stuff.
all good. So another question. I had a client that I completed the work for them, but ended up ghosting for personal reasons after I completed the work for them. How can I repair that relationship if possible at all? Okay, that's a good question.
So, you, you worked for them, delivered, and then you didn't talk to them, and then now you want to repair. Is that the rough idea? That's Sean.
Let's see. Yes, exactly. That's what he said in the chat.
It doesn't hurt. Like, I'd be shameless. I would just reach out, and then you can figure out all kinds of reasons to reach out. For example, like if it's Christmas time, you always wish them happy holidays or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like all the real estate agents sending Christmas cards, or like if there's something actually relevant or a case study that you can share, some other relevant work, or you can just check in and see how they're doing. Like, or also, if you talk to them on email, add them on LinkedIn and then talk to them there. So it's not totally, it's a new channel and there's a reason to reach out. I'd be shameless about it. I think you should go for it. Absolutely go for it. Don't gotta go for every single lead. You lose nothing from trying. So.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess one more question from JG. What was that consulting accelerator you mentioned? Oh, okay, you already said Vixel.
Yeah, VIXUL, Vixel. It's worth checking out. Vixel.com.
Okay. Let's see, like Sam Wood's AI consulting market content for figuring out ICPs with ChatGPT. Oh, that's interesting. Are you familiar with Sam Woods, Michael, by chance?
I'm not, actually.
Okay. All right, let's see. We got some questions from Abu. Okay, no, these are just comments. Oh, this is all stuff on cold emailing. Let's see.
Yeah, by the way, Abu's advice, I totally agree with the account-based marketing with ABM. Yeah, Sales Navigator and CRM. I think it's important to track these things and have a written list down, like written and finite list, or else it's just you tend to just let the leads go. And I would agree on I actually do have another domain actually that I use for the consulting and another email, and I totally agree that you don't want to don't burn your original domain. So and using instantly for the cold emails and warming them up, all good advice from Abu. Yeah, I agree.
We got good advice in the chat. Fareed wants to speak. Come on up, Fareed.
Hey guys, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Good conversation so far. I like all the content, guys. Michael, thank you for the input. Appreciate it. Question really is the sales team. I'm always trying to figure out, I haven't been in the sales for a while, but I always want to understand how do these big companies set up their sales team and the commission structure for a product or service that they're selling. They have the SDRs, BDRs, whatever. Then they got the salesperson, the sales manager. Like how they divvy up things when it comes to commissions. Is this usually a framework or some kind of cookie cutter that's out there, or ideas? Thank you.
In terms of the teams, it seems like what people do is they have like a chief revenue officer, and then the sales and marketing all report to them. So that seems to be how they. And then you have sales managers under them, and then the sales reps who are doing all the calls and the actual work underneath the sales managers. So that seems to be how they structure the sales teams. Like the commission structure, I guess I don't have like a distributed sales force yet. I basically do all the sales myself. So I don't know if I can comment on it, but I offer like, I know it's not just me, but I offer like 10% referral bonuses if the people refer clients and it closes. And I know some other agencies that do something similar on the first statement of work. So on the discovery, for example. So yeah, I'm not an expert on the commissions.
Yeah, good question. Let's see. We got some things happening in the chat. Nope. So we got some more time, guys. If you guys have questions, drop it in the comments or raise your hand. Got lots of real world experience, hard learned lessons from Michael. Oh, here we go.
I had a follow-up question, but I
Perfect.
trying to figure out the mute button. Okay, cool. So, question regarding the consulting packages, right? Let's just say you want to do some kind of, well, I guess question for you is, do you provide some kind of consultant or assessment package in the beginning where you want to know if you're a good fit for the customer and the customer a good fit for you before you dive in? Or you have a pre-cut offer and either the customer fits it or not? Like, how do you, I guess, weed out the bad ones?
Yeah, I guess that's the purpose of the 30-minute call, is to see if you can if you're a good fit, the free 30-minute call. So that one, the way it's structured is generally like it's 30 minutes, 10 minutes talking about their problem, 10 minutes discussing potential solutions, and then 10 minutes talking about how you can work together. So that's how I structure that call. And then the obviously the paid discovery too. I mean, the discovery is also a little bit of a test too. Like I've had clients stop after the discovery as well before too. So that's also a less risky way to test whether you're a good fit for each other too.
So what if you don't have a product or a consulting gig in mind? You do have expertise, but you want to get into it, but you don't know what to offer them yet. But if you do listen to what their problems are, I guess you could have some kind of a, I don't know, 30-minute conversation with maybe 10 folks that are similar to kind of hear them out to see what the issues are. Then you kind of see what you can offer them, or like, where do you start? Like, if you're at zero, you got some expertise, you got like 10, 20 years of experience. How do you break into it, I guess?
I guess I guess I'm still a little bit unclear on the specific question here, but if it's
Okay. I mean, at some point, I guess you got, let's just say you have, let's say you have a day job, you're working 10 years, 15 years. So you got experience on whatever it is, right? And you're thinking about moving into the business side of things, consulting side, but you don't know what to offer as a product or a package or a service. You haven't done it, right? Let's just say. How do you go about, I guess, taking that first step?
So you're unsure of like what services to even offer, basically, right?
Right. Like for example, I don't know, let's just say this Gen AI craze that's going on. Whole bunch of stuff you can do from chatbots to rags to whatever. You can't do everything and everything for all the customers, right? You probably want to create some kind of cookie cutter project you can deliver. But how do you come to that, project, I guess, creation process? Not sure if I'm explaining my question right.
So I can try to kind of frame it slightly differently. So I guess for people like just getting started, like maybe they're working a full-time job and they want to get into entrepreneurship through consulting, like selling their services essentially. I guess what advice would you have for people like trying to make that transition? Like what offer do they even make? Like what customers do they even try to sell to?
Okay, that's a great question.
There you go. I couldn't articulate it like that.
I would go on. I think the freelancing marketplaces are a good place to start. Go to Upwork and then type the keywords for your area. Like type ChatGPT, type AI, and see what kind of projects even show up. That'll give you an idea of like the market demand and then the amount of competition and whether like what the projects even look like, right? Go on. I would basically go on like all Catalent, Upwork, Fiverr. Type the keywords and see what projects show up. I would look at platforms in that area and see what see the partners in that space and what they're doing as well. I think that's where I'd probably start.
Yeah, good one. Good one.
Nice.
Now, what is
Well,
your
thanks for all the.
game
Oh,
plan
go
now
ahead.
for
Sorry.
scaling? Oh, sorry, Sean.
Oh no, I didn't know you were done. What was the question?
No, I was saying, I guess question to Michael now, for you, if you wanted to scale, like I always wanted to be like the front end of the consulting, right? You got expertise, so you know what you're talking about, and you can probably look at the delivery of the product or service. I guess at scaling, would you, I guess, find people that can deliver what you want? You sell it on the front end, you hold the communication with the customer, but the delivery at some point you give it to someone else, but you just make sure the quality is there since you know what to expect, I guess.
That's exactly right. Like your responsibility is like the quality, client communications, and then also the team, like forming the teams, basically. That's
Yeah.
where that's what you want to focus on, not the implementation itself.
So for that team, do you have some kind of figure in mind? Is there something where you are looking at profit margin of say 70%? So you're looking at, let's say, whatever you're charging a grand upfront, you want to make sure you find someone who could deliver quality for 300. I'm just saying, using that as an example. Or do you just look at a 50-50? Like, how do you price that, I guess?
Okay, that's a great question. Actually, in the accelerator, like for consultancies, generally, you want to be above 45% gross margins. So that means that you take the cost of everyone in the project. So all your hiring costs, and don't forget your own time too. By the way, that's a cost. That could be a major cost too. Add all
Yeah.
of that together, and then what I recommend is you can multiply that by 2, and then that's basically the cost of the project because that's a 50% gross margin.
Yeah.
So
Right.
generally, you want to aim above 45%. Anything under 40 starts to be pretty slim, to be honest. So
Yeah. Cool. I think I'm all done with the questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for all the great questions, Fareed. Okay, so we're kind of like getting right up on time, but JG kind of dropped 5 questions in the chat. Maybe we could just do like rapid fire. Okay, first one, like any near-term opportunities that you're excited about in the consulting world?
near term, I mean, like personally, what I'm doing is focusing on these channel partnerships. I'm very excited about focusing on particular ecosystems. So that's
What are
one.
your biggest regrets running a consulting business so far?
Yeah, I think I made a mistake last year, which is that basically you always got to be prospecting, always be closing, always be prospecting. I made a mistake last year when I secured a bunch of different contracts, and then I had the projects going, and then I let off the gas pedal a little bit because I was like, oh, I want to focus on project delivery, make sure it's good, and then that was a big mistake because the sales pipeline could take like a few months to get back up going.
Right.
Even if you're completely full, you got to be prospecting every single day. You got to be making reach outs, writing proposals, reaching out, creating content, doing whatever. Like if it's an activity that will help you find a new customer, you got to be doing something of that every single day. That was a big mistake I made. So always be prospecting.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Talking about closing, how do you close once you do the discovery?
So after discovery, you have a deliverable. So you have a full report after that, and then after in the final meeting of the discovery, then at that point, then I'll have a presentation. I'll give them the handoff, and then we'll discuss the pricing and the timeline for implementation.
You mentioned mining marketplaces earlier. What do you mean by that?
So basically, for example, like every single listing that could be relevant, you should try to go for like all of them. Basically, like you shouldn't leave any stone. Like why leave any stone unturned? Those are all like leads, right? And it doesn't take that long. So really, like be very thorough and go through every single potential listing on like on Upwork, Catalent, on Fiverr. Cover all the keywords that you care about in data engineering. So it's not necessarily just data engineering, but what about like the platforms? Like those are keywords, right? Like
Right.
I will help you on Snowflake, on Databricks, on these platforms. Those are all keywords. You're data engineering experts. You probably know even more keywords to target than I do. So that's what I meant by mining it out. Leave
And
no
then
stone.
last question, are there any uncommon ways to find great freelancers? I guess any tips and tricks for finding subcontractors?
I found amazing freelancers and contractors through these platforms, and like by amazing like 10x engineers. Like I genuinely believe they're 10x engineers. And I basically when I hire I evaluate them on a couple different criteria. Like first of all, like obviously technical skill. Like they got to be like really, they got to be able to do the job. Their communication, their past reviews, and like their trustworthiness, right? So they have to be like somewhat trustworthy. So when I'm in an interview and I'm asking questions, I'm generally rating them on those 4. And it's turned out well. So.
Nice. All right. Well, we're right up on time. I want to thank Michael once again for taking the time to share all the incredible knowledge and insights from these past few years. on his journey. Thank you guys, everyone in the audience for joining. I hope it was valuable to you. We're going to share the event recording on the YouTube channel and in our past events channel. And we actually have an event coming up next week. We got an event with Banias, who's going to be talking about 7 tools every Python developer should know about. So hope to see you guys in there. And thanks again and have a good night.